What's going on, big man?
Hey, Chevy, what's going on with you?
Well, it's episode 39. It's like not quite 40, but we're getting there. We got people joining us. Jamin, Daryl's here. I don't think Bruno's joining us. He's out east with his son, bringing him off to college, getting him back to college down
that time of year.
I believe it's in Indiana. He's down there. I'm wrong. Rob Evans joining us. Guys, it's going to be a fun show. It's one of those shows where, Chevy and Nasty, we don't have much time to speak between weeks. Sometimes it seems like the weeks just fly by. Like, I feel like I was just on with you yesterday, but a lot has happened in the last week.
Yep.
A lot in the CFL, a lot in the NHL. The NFL preseason is getting closer to an end, and we're getting close to that time where we'll have more NFL action to talk about, which we'll get into it in the next couple of weeks. We like to
but for the CFL, so much happened this week.
Oh my gosh, it's like the return of the Jedi. So many returns. So we're going to talk about that. Lots going on. We had our first Bantam Mavericks football jamboree. I think that was fun to see our guys out there.
Little Chevy and Nasty taking the field for the first time this year again. Yeah, that was awesome.
So lots to talk about. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but you know what? We're going to follow that path. That road leads us from here to the end. We don't know when it's going to end, but we're going to jump on that road right now. So welcome to the ride. We're Chevy and Nasty. And we're glad you're here. Yes, we're back. Chevy and Nasty, you can find us. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Some people get their podcasts on Google. I don't know too many people that Google Podcast. Definitely Spotify and Apple are up there. But like and subscribe, all our socials at Chevy and Nasty. We're glad you're here, guys. We love taking your comments. We love seeing the conversations you have. It's hard to keep up with them sometimes because sometimes a little topic that we talk about just goes off on a tangent in the comments. And it's awesome to see because it's really a great community. I was riding back from Edmonton Friday night with my boys, and we were listening to our episode, and it was fun to listen on the car radio without seeing the video. And Sheldon, you sound really good. And the boys thought we were good. They loved our chatter. They loved our talk. They were making fun of me for some of my comments. They thought it was pretty funny last week that we were talking about OnlyFans and athletes, and they thought it was pretty funny. Lots to talk about. We want to make sure we mention our sponsors: Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media. Both these companies, We Drone is Sheldon's company, and Performance Freight Management is our great buddy Daryl. I think I unofficially dubbed Daryl as our executive producer last week, so that's your title now, Daryl, because you're in on our show prep.
He's throwing content ideas. Yeah, he's throwing in videos.
Yeah, no, he's an invaluable part of our team. And I think as we grow this thing, we're growing it with the right people in our corner. And we're glad to have Daryl. We're glad to have Trey, our intrepid producer. And I love seeing Nanamona last week.
Nanamona.
We felt bad that we didn't give you a little heads up. We saw your comments, and at the end, we're like, man, we didn't give a shout out. So we wanted the first one to shout out is to you. But you know what? We know Nanamon is here for the poetry, so let's get it started in style. The ride is our show, and live is our speed. We can rhyme pretty well, but we have trouble when we've got to read.
It's a league of returns. What is new is actually old. We have returns of players and coaches, and maybe even a return of the old green and gold.
Ooh, interesting. Why did Chevy and Nasty get banned last week? It must be our quick wit. Or it was the video of the Aussie breakdancer. She was not great, but pure bad.
Lots of movement in the NHL. Sorry to cut you off. In this frenzy, no GMs or buds. The Habs scored an underachieving star, while the Oilers lost two good young studs.
Now, it's been quite some time since we've hit our Hollywood tea, you know, all the gossip and stuff, the trash that we like. But things always get hairy. And now it is official that J-Lo and Ben split. Will either of them remarry?
Somewhat a chaotic ride. That's how we like our show. Sometimes we hammer the gas. Sometimes we ride till our gas is low. And Chev, you know what? That's what when I first read that one tonight. Ride till our gas is low. It cracked me up. I had a crazy story. I think it was Thursday. One of those, multiple shoot days, and I'm looking at the old gas gauge, and I've got 120 kilometers till E. But I started my day in Cochrane, and then I was down in the deep southeast, and for sure I'd have to downtown, and for sure I'd have time after that to get gas before my next appointment. But you know what? We ran late. I ran like 45 minutes late. There was the realtor and the owner were waiting there at their place. I'm like, I better just get down there. Forgot totally about my gas situation. As I'm leaving that one to go off to my next drone shoot, busy day, I look down at my gas and it's like 4 kilometers till empty.
Just kept going.
3 kilometers till empty, something like that. And I'm in Coventry, right? So I got to find a place to get gas. So I drive around the corner and down the block, and I take a right and I pull into a complex. But first I had to wait at a set of lights, and then I pull in. Every spot is full. At this point, my car is down to 1. I turn off the keys to let it sit. I go to pull in. Somebody beats me into that spot. I drive around to line up the other way. My car is on zero gas. Have you ever seen that in your car, in your vehicle before? 0 kilometers till empty. You're out of gas. You are literally on fumes.
I've been to 6. I've been down to 6. I've never seen 0. It's like that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer has the car. He's got to return to the rental spot. And I believe like they're right there and they could turn in. And then next thing you know, they just keep going. And that's how the episode, he's like, yo, we're going to keep going. And they just go, right?
It kind of makes me think, though, if I can run it right down to 0, maybe gas is one of those conspiracy theories to build big corporate profits. Maybe our trucks aren't running on gas, Chev. Well, because I was sitting on 0 for a while.
Well, I'm going to tell you, my dad, a long time ago, he had a 1992 Volkswagen Passat. And I don't know how many of you kind of go with the gas tank empty. There's the half empty, half full, and then there's riding at the bottom, right? And my dad had this Passat, and I guess he would ride it. My dad actually always kept his cars full, but when we started driving, we rode them pretty low, and he didn't always have a chance to fill it up. And as a teenager, you forget to put gas in sometimes, right? It's McDonald's or gas. You get by McDonald's, and I remember my dad's gas tank imploded, and the imploded. So what was the explanation given to him is it was riding so low on gas all the time that it actually sucked it closed as it was kind of trying to get the gas. So I always remember that, but doesn't change my driving behaviors because oftentimes I'm riding it low, and it gives my girlfriend a heart attack. Like she sees 10K kilometers, or she sees less than 20, and she's like freaking out, But I tell you, the other thing I've learned is that we've talked about this. Brittany and I were in a long distance relationship. She lives in Red Deer. I live in Calgary. I now doesn't matter even if I have a half a tank. Half a tank could get me almost to Edmonton in my vehicle. But I tell you what, I fill up before we leave, because you hit some traffic on that one highway that connects Calgary to Edmonton with Red Deer in the middle. If you hit that 2-hour traffic where there's a huge like jackknife semi or rollover, you're done. And sometimes you're like, if you're not moving, you could lose that tank, especially if you have half. So lesson to you, you got to fill it up, Shell. You got to fill it up.
I guess so.
Well,
anyway, that's my story. Listen, hey, Ernie, welcome. Jack Fulton, haven't seen you for a couple of weeks.
Oh, Jack.
Join us. Todd Kozak. Todd Kozak in Saskatoon. I've run out of gas while it showed me 12 kilometers remaining. You see, I mean, it's just you just never know. In fact, I think it's an important lesson for all of us that, once a year we should all run our trucks completely out of gas, just so we know how honest that gas gauge is, right? You got to know where that mark is. And the only way to know is by getting real life experience, running it until it's choking. And it actually strengthens the pump because it makes it work a little harder and it comes back more resilient the next time. So good advice to us all.
So who are you calling if you're stranded on the side of the road? Is it me?
AAA.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Thanks again for everyone joining us. It's great. It's lovely. It's fantastic to have you all there. I saw Rubio up there in the comments. So much going on. We talked a little bit about poetry. You know what, guys? We got banned last week. So if you tuned in live, you saw we had a little segment where we talked about the Australian breakdancer. She was absolutely terrible. We mentioned her in the poem, the ray gun. Still a bit of a mystery of how that person got to the Olympics. When you're talking about the pinnacle of athletic and performance achievement, that person's performance, I still can't look at it and think that was a serious performance. Anyways, long story short, we played the clip, which wasn't even directly off of any of the official sites. I think it was a screen grab of something on Twitter. We got banned. Our show got banned, and we were pretty choked up about that. And I don't know if this is the world, the Olympic organization, because we got banned by the IOC. That was what the flag said. It says people could not watch our episode. It first came to light when our friends down in New Zealand, MD and the chef, and I don't know if they're here tonight, but they tune in once in a while, and they said, we can't catch your episode. And then we put it out to some of the other people that are Rubio and some of the other guys that joined us. They said, yeah, you guys not showing up. So we figured it out. And it turns out that clip, that 2 minutes that we showed, that terrible breakdance performance, was banned by the International Olympic Committee. Now,
the clip was banned. No, it wasn't the clip.
Our show was banned because our clip was played. That clip was played.
Yeah, but you see it all the time. Like when you have a clip playing and you got a couple of heads, because we still had our heads over top of that, right? Like that's one of those things. That one kind of bugs me a little bit. I think the IOC's been a little bit sensitive about old Chevy Nasty there.
No, I think they're being a little bit sensitive about their selection for the Olympics and the breakdancing, because I'll tell you what, Jamin's putting pole dancing for an Olympic sport. I tell you, it's still the can opener. But like I was feeling like at first I thought, is it a copyright issue? Probably. But there's part of me thinking it's because we went hard at this breakdancer. Now, even my son's like, I've traveled across the world doing bully prevention stuff, right? And there's a difference between bullying, okay, and calling someone out when they don't do something well. It's kind of like when you're a coach and your player does something wrong, you got to call them out. Yeah, you're not going to berate the person. You're not, especially if they're your player, but you could call them out. If you're a paying fan to a sport and your team loses, okay, your kicker misses 4 in a row, a la Saskatchewan Roughriders, Brett Lawther this weekend, you have a right to call them out. But these days, we're in such a sensitive time where it's like you call out an athlete. And yes, you know what? If you pay attention online and a million voices call you out because they all want to call, they're all calling you on your bad performance, you pay attention, you're going to feel bullied. But every single person is voicing one opinion. And if you pay attention, you're going to feel that. You got to turn that stuff off. You can't be living online if you're one of those athletes and criticism affects you. Because that person, I heard all the post-game stuff. It's like, oh, the bullying, the online harassment. There might have been some people that took it too far. But what you and I did, calling out this performance that was subpar and substandard for what people would expect at the Olympics, I think was within reason of being, whether it was a fan watching on TV, a commentator, someone that's critiquing a sport. If I blew a snap in a game and someone called me out,
this isn't blowing snap. Like back to Reagan. Like it's almost like we were being trolled, and I still feel like we're being trolled. Like
right.
It's like you not missing a snap, but like you missing I don't know a drive in the British Open that you somehow snuck into, and you've never golfed before, right? Or pure amateur, and you're in a foursome with Freddie Couples and Tiger Woods, and and you clearly just don't belong. Like I felt like I was being trolled. Like honestly, and then response over the top talking about like chauvinistic bullying and things like that. Dude, any guy would get hammered, maybe worse, right?
Yeah,
it's always gross when guys are like criticizing women. But yeah, Cozy says it was total cringe. It was cringe. It was so cringy. It was unbelievable that it actually happened. But it gave us something to talk about. Not one, not two, but now 3 weeks in a row.
Right, absolutely. And the thing is, like, it's just this thing with athletes and criticism now. Like, athletes are people too. I get it. When I played, there was less channels of criticism towards us. You have a bad game. Mike Petrie wrote about it in the paper the next day. It kind of died out. But hey, remember there was the old Rider forums. There was the old where if you went on those forums, you would hear the voices of all the Rider fans that hated Sheldon Nepastrick for going to the Calgary Stampeders, right? But if you didn't click on that, you'd never hear their voices. You wouldn't even know unless someone in your circle said, "Hey, Sheldon, did you hear what they say?" And then you had the choice to say, "Listen, I don't want to hear it. It's BS. It's noise."
That's what happened. That's what happened to me. It was my dad. My dad started living in those forums, and he was mad all the time. And I'm like, Dad, you know what? If they're not talking about me, I'm irrelevant to them.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not in there. I don't worry about it. I know this stuff goes on. That's fine. Hey, at least I'm having an impact on another city's fans. That says pretty good things about my career, right? But you can't be chasing. But the problem is that was before social media was big. Now people live online for the likes, for the followers, for everything that goes along with that, right?
And it's a double-edged sword. We talked about it last week with those athletes that have enough followers that they can monetize it through an OnlyFans account or whatever they do, selling merchandise. But the double-edged sword is people have that access to you, and if you allow those critics to affect your mental well-being, then you shouldn't be on that. And that happens with athletes. It happens with Hollywood movie stars. Like every time and again, you know me with the geek movies I love. Every time there's a new superhero movie or a Star Wars movie, there's always people jumping on, "Oh, she was a terrible choice," or "her movie sucked," or this, and they take it so personally. And it is because they're artists. It is because they're athletes and they're so proud of their craft. But you got to understand that the voices of the haters are always going to be loud when you listen to them. And they can be totally mute if you choose not to. And I told my son asked me this today. He said, "Dad, how many listeners do you have?" And I said, "I don't know. Last week, I think we had 25 listeners live. And then usually there's about 63 people that seem to pick up the podcast during the week. And I know there's people that listen to our show that love it, that don't comment, that we don't see in our comments. But every once in a while, I'll bump into someone and they say, 'Hey, I heard your show was great.' But I know there's also people that might listen to our show to watch us suck."
Yeah.
Right? And I told Kyle that. As we're driving home from football tonight. I said, "But I don't listen to those people because those people are going to want you to fail whether you had one listener." And I said, if you have a show that's good enough to have 25 listeners, it means you're hitting the right spot, because if there's 25 people that like what you're doing, there's probably 250 to 2,500 that are the same type of person that will like it. It's just a matter of where you market it, where you put it. But at the same point, if there's 5 people that hate your show, there can be 5,000 people that hate it once you have 250,000 people watching, because they just don't, you're not their cup of tea. So you can't listen to that. And for Ray Gunn, whatever happens in her future, I don't know, like you said, I too don't understand what happened there, whether we were being trolled, whether this person really did suck, whatever it is. I wish them all the best. But when you get on that stage, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a performer, whether you're a politician, you're not impervious to criticism, and you can't complain about. You got the old expression: if you cannot take the heat, you better not go dance like a dead kangaroo at the Olympics. And that's it. That's it. So, Rob Evans said early on, I saw the comment appear on the screen. I hate saying that word, but yeah, sometimes that snowflake culture kind of permeates in issues like this, where you cannot criticize someone. You can't coach someone. You gotta make sure you watch everything you say, because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Like, no, you know what? Coach someone hard. My coach always said, when you don't, the worst day of your life as a player and athlete is when no one says anything to you.
Yep. Your coach is there in drills, correcting everybody else, pulling them aside. Guys get frustrated. It drives them crazy, and he's not talking to you.
Yep.
Doesn't care.
That's when you're
not there long anyway. You're not worth the investment.
Yeah. So maybe Ray Gunn has a future in breakdancing, because we're still talking about her, but definitely needs to up her game. Sheldon, I know we got to take a break soon. You were a bit salty tonight. We got off the football field. You're like, "Chev, I'm in a bad mood." What's up, big guy?
Well, yeah. Well, one, it was a long Tuesday to begin with. Two, one of my favorite things in life is coaching young men in football, right? Mm-hmm. And teach them what to do. Last night we had a spectacular practice. Tonight I was ready to write left and right on their gloves and on their shoes.
Yeah.
They couldn't line up properly. I called this one kid. I felt bad, but I called him over. I said, "Hey, what's the name of the defense where he is a defensive end, right? What's the name of the defense where we line up in the B gap?" And he's like, and he goes, "There isn't one." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. There isn't one. So why are you keep lining up in the B gap?" Yet, oh yeah, I noticed that. I thought about it at the last second. It's just like driving me crazy. And just every single guy had like just that brain fart day. And I felt like we just wasted an entire period. And that, that was, but they're kids. And you know what occurred to me? If my players are sucking today, there's a good chance that I sucked as a coach today because I didn't dial them in early on or get them lined up properly, or we're focusing on the wrong priorities. Their heads were out of it. I got to do something different tomorrow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel you because tonight I was coaching O-line. There was, this week I decided we have 3 D-line coaches on a 3-man front with about 4 defensive, and we have 4 defensive linemen. I'm like, Sheldon, it's kind of overkill. We got 3 great guys. I can help out with the O-line. They have 1 coach for about 5 guys. A lot of those kids never played before. So I moved over to the O-line. And today our regular O-line coach wasn't there. So I was on my own. Coaching was fine, but gosh, it was one of those things where with the O-line, they all have to be good. Like, and each one of the did some good things, but as a unit, we sucked. I mean, we were running 10 plays an inside run, 6 of them, the snap went over the quarterback.
It didn't matter that my guys were lined up in the wrong gap.
No, it didn't matter that your guys were sucking on your end because my guys couldn't even get off on the ball together. We go on 1. Okay, guy goes offside. Okay, let's go on 2. Okay, 1 guy goes offside. And it's like, holy, we cannot we couldn't do it today. We couldn't screw in a light bulb with 10 of us. So anyways, it was a little frustrating too. And I was getting that point where it's like, oh, I just want to get mad at a kid. But it's like, no, you know what? These kids will come back tomorrow completely forgetting how they sucked. But what they will remember is if I yelled at them. And again, getting back to our thing about criticism, especially with football in Canada and the makeup of athletes now, right? You can't go too hard. And I don't want to go too hard on 13-year-olds. But in general, football is not a very popular sport. The way they coach it at youth in the United States is we want to get kids to quit so we know who sticks around, and then we can break them and then shape them. That's not Canada. You get, if your son quits, the biggest kid on the team, if he quits, we lose the biggest kid on the team forever, because there is no Kai number 2 in line waiting for his shot. It's not like the States where you have, 10 defensive tackles and 13 defensive ends. We got 4 guys and 5 of them, and so if we go too hard on the kids, they'll quit. And that's in Canada, coaching football is very much like being an expert fisherman. You got to know when to put a little tension, but you got to know when to loosen. Otherwise, the wire snaps and it never comes back. So I get why you were salty. I was a little salty, but I always got that smile on my face because I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. I got to be a better coach on Thursday, just like you do. And then we get ready for our game on Saturday. But let's take a break now, Sheldon. We're coming up against the time. We said we're going to stick to our times tonight. Yeah. Again, thank you guys for joining us tonight. When we get back, we're going to get into the CFL. Lots going on in the CFL. We're going to stay true to our roots. We're going to hit some CFL. Remember, at Chevy and Nasty on all the socials, pretty much all the socials, and we'll get more as we go. And we'll take about a minute break and we'll be back.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
It's
And
back.
we're back. We are back on time. Second week in a row, I think. But yeah, once again, guys, just want to thank all you guys for joining Chevy and I tonight. You know, I feel like it's always just kind of like the, wing night at the pub, right? Everybody gets together, have a few laughs, throw out a few jokes, tell a few stories. And so where are we going to take this ride now, Chev? Where do you want to get this segment
started?
Listen,
last week, the big news for us was Nathan Rourke returned to the CFL. That was the big news. We're looking forward to his return. His performance was quite underwhelming. We'll talk about that in a second. But the big news right after Nathan Rourke's return was the announcement of the new owner for the Edmonton Elks, or as Sheldon likes to say, the no longer Edmonton Elks. Now, backstory is Edmonton had been a community-run team for, I believe, the last 40 years or so. And as the Eskimos, they did really well, obviously super successful, especially in the 80s, Hugh Campbell dynasty. I was able to play for Edmonton for a couple of years, went to 2 Grey Cups, a long winning tradition. Part of that whole moniker when Edmonton was a city of champions before they took, I don't know why, was the storied Edmonton Eskimo franchise.
Yep.
Then a few things happened. That, in my mind, really turned the fan base away. It started with Eric Tillman coming in and trading Ricky Ray for Stephen Giles. Now, Ricky Ray at that point was on his way to a Hall of Fame career. He had a shoulder injury, but he was still Ricky Ray. The Edmonton had to fix the offensive line around him, but he was still one of the greatest quarterbacks in the CFL. And Eric Tillman came in and traded him for, he probably would have gotten more value if he got a bag of pucks. But he got Stephen Giles, who was like this young, somewhat up-and-comer, mobile quarterback, blah, 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 all the measurables that everyone thought would be the next great guy that we've seen time and time again in the CFL. This guy's going to be the next Doug Flutie, or this guy's the next Warren Moon. Yeah. This guy's the next Henry Briss. And they're not. They're a guy that can run, but can't.
Wait. Now, what year was that roughly when Stephen Giles came in? Because I think he didn't have much of a career after that either.
I believe he didn't last. They wound up quickly.
When was that? Because
that would have been 2012. So
and by that time, Jason Moss was already in Hamilton with Machocha.
Well, Jason Moss was gone. So Jason Moss was coaching in Ottawa, and I believe he winds up going to Toronto. So Ricky Ray gets traded in 2012. That's the first move. Fans are up in arms, and the only thing that saved that is they went and got what's his name, Michael Riley.
Oh yeah.
He was a hard-nosed, tough as nails quarterback.
He was actually awesome. He wasn't
Ricky Ray, but he did. I believe he won them a Grey Cup. But the next big thing was COVID hits, and the GM at the time, head coach Sutherland, decides that they're going to fire Dwayne Mandruzia. Short of his 50th season as the Edmonton Eskimos equipment manager. Now, if you got the heart and soul, this guy was the heart and the soul of the locker room. Mandruziak family, Dwayne, Matt, and Mac, his sons, they were a fixture. When they talk about once an Eskimo, always an Eskimo, it started with that family. And for whatever reason, the coaching staff, the football ops staff decided that it was time for him to go. There might have been I don't know the full story, but basically when you're firing that guy, it's because there's a clash of personalities that you can't put aside. And the board of governors that runs this not-for-profit community team decided to go with that. And I remember a lot of alumni were pissed.
We wrote
letters, we called in, and their hands, the official response I got was, listen, our hands are tied. Our job is to hire the people that we think run the football ops and then let them handle it. And no amount of convincing reversed the decision. So Dwayne loses his job, never gets to coach or to equipment manage his 50th season, going to COVID. And then the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people was the name change. And we've talked about this a lot of times. Leaving the Edmonton Eskimos name for the Edmonton Elks. Now, we've skinned that cat so many times in terms of what it meant. Was it good? What was bad? Did people agree? Did people don't? Are there some native tribes that thought it was fine to keep the name? Are there some that were insulted by it? And there's a whole mixed bag. But the diehard Edmonton Eskimo fans that associated with that team, they walked away, and a lot of them have not come back. And the team has been losing money hand over fist. A community team that doesn't have to turn a profit. They could show a zero balance and still be operating perfectly. Yet they couldn't even show a zero balance, and they've been losing money. I believe that,
and a team that for over 30 years had been the class of the CFL. Yes. I mean, Hugh Campbell was the de facto commissioner for all those years that he was running the team. Why? It was the model of how to run a CFL franchise. Yeah. And if you look at it, even, I retired in 2007. They continued to win a couple of Grey Cups after that. But it was that window of about 7 years. You want to write a book on how to take the Toronto Maple Leafs and make that building empty in 7 years. Go. Yeah. Just follow the Eskimos playbook. It was horrible. Manifesto. They literally did everything wrong, right?
It was a manifesto from hiring Eric Tillman. Yeah.
So finally, this is leading to it. So finally, now we've got private ownership. Larry Thompson, an old season ticket holder that fell in love with the Eskimos when he was 12 years old and went to his first game. Had a civil construction company, just sold it, bought the team, and he's going to make some changes. But I don't know what at this point, if you were Larry Thompson, what would you do? Let's start with the name. Jamin writes in, no, somebody else I think said it. Can you go back to the Eskimos? Can you change the name back to the Eskimos? Or is that ship sailed?
I don't know. This thing, when they changed the name is because they knew they were going to lose some big sponsorship. I don't know if it was league sponsorship. I believe it was local, big business sponsorship. But at this point, I believe there's enough people that want the old name back that if you lose those sponsors, I think someone else steps in. Now,
would it affect the CFL though?
I believe it might. I just
here's it's sort of a loaded question. I think the point is you can't move backwards unless you got the permission and the approval of the Inuit communities in Northern Canada.
Yeah,
right. Which I think allegedly they're the ones affected. I almost don't care about what anybody else thinks except for them. But could you imagine Larry Thompson forging a partnership, charities, sending the guys up there in the off season to do good work in the North in exchange for bringing back the historic name? Could you do that?
And maybe that happens. Maybe it's a compromise. Maybe they go back to the Esks, and that's at least a nod to the old team. I think the Esks.
Well, they're talking about going to the double E.
And that's
even the Elk is better than the Elks. I still can't say Elks. Like I don't. Yeah. To me, it's like deer, elk.
Yeah. No, I agree. And they said that even at the opening presser, so the press conference to announce Larry Thompson, that elk head logo was nowhere to be found. And I mean, if you look at the Edmonton Elks website, they're obviously not going to talk about this because they've got to toe the line with what their marketing is. But on some of the other sites, on TSN and some of the other places, they asked him, and he said, quite frankly, that they're going to lean more into the double E, because the double E is the Edmonton Football Club, whether it's Elks or Esks or Eskimos, has always been referred to as the green and gold. We said it in our poem, that was a verse, the green and gold, or the double E. I think if I was in Edmonton, I'd prefer being called the Edmonton Green and Gold, just like the Ottawa Red Blacks. I mean, you've got that in college football. You got the Laval Rouge et Or, which is red and gold. You got the Sherbrooke.
Then you'd have to change your helmet to a GG.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, definitely that's a factor. But they can't go backwards, I don't think. But maybe they could. I don't know. Like could they? Like the Thanos blip? Could they just snap the finger and go back? Because I think if they go back to Eskimos, tomorrow they walked in and like, we're the Eskimos, I think it would generate a buzz and people would be going back. And because you know what? There is a certain, listen, we live in this society where everyone tells you what to do. We talked about the snowflakes before. We talked about the wokeness. People are tired of being told that a certain way of saying something or thinking something is wrong. And there's this counter movement that's like, yeah, you know what? Let's stick it to the man. I think that's always been part of human nature. Let's stick it to the man. And right now, the man is telling you, you can't call your football team this. You can't say this.
So yeah, the man is saying that, and it's very powerful, and people can't go against it. But the thing that we've also got to bring up here is it offensive? Right? You've got
that's what I want to know.
You've got the Vancouver Canucks, you've got the Montreal Habs. Right? In my mind, my whole life, I looked at it as exactly that. Yeah. But that's me. Are there people truly offended and feeling it's derogatory?
And absolutely, I would love them to revisit that. I would love it to be a comprehensive study that's not done by the Edmonton Football Club, like a third-party company to study this, because right before this all went down, right before COVID, they had commissioned the study, and it was an Edmonton team that commissioned the study, and they released the finding. They said, yeah, this certain group up in the north had no problems with it. I remember Jordan Tutu, the hockey player, NHL hockey player, was asked point blank about this. He said, I would have no problem with it if they kept the name, because that was right at the time where Washington was making a name change, and the Redskins is a derogatory term. And I know that for sure. Again, I would like to know more about the Eskimos and what it's viewed as universally, not just maybe by one tribe, but if all the northern tribes say, hey, it's not, or if a bunch say, hey, you know what, we're fine with it, then why are some fine, why are some not? I know no native tribes are fine with the name Redskins. I know no native tribes were fine with the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, the Indians logo, their
logo, Indian head logo.
Yeah.
I know that the Chicago Blackhawks logo is a partnership with the Blackhawk tribe, just like the Seminole one is in Florida. So there's different iterations of this. I'd like to really get to the bottom of this thing with the Eskimos. If it's offensive, put it out there. Let everyone know we cannot go back, and let's find something that people want.
And the question being, is it offensive, or should it be offensive? Right? If it should be offensive because we should know better, that's not a good enough answer for me. I want to know that it is offensive, and if it is, and again, I'm with it. If it is offensive, then you've got to talk about what you can do about it, right?
And I want the people to tell me it's offensive. The people that are offended
are affected by it,
not someone that's saying we should be offended by it, because that happens a lot these days. People advocating for others without those people speaking up. And I don't mind advocating for people that are marginalized, but I want a comprehensive dialogue opened that the public gets to understand, without someone saying, well, you should be offended because according to Harvard law, this, no, I want to know. I want that grassroots type of information, not the scholar, not the someone who did a PhD on DNI, diversity and inclusion and all that. I want someone that's grassroots that says, hey, this is the real deal. Like I've mentioned.
I wanted to come up to say, Sheldon, I hate it when you call me that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody that's telling me what I should eat and all the other things, it doesn't have the same impact on me. But,
no, absolutely.
Okay.
So
let's move on. Well, new ownership, some changes.
Yeah.
It probably won't be the name. Maybe it'll be the logo. Let's see what happens.
They did win for their new owner. They did win.
Well, I think it was Ernie or somebody back there said, what would it take to, for that club to start winning, something along those lines. Well, the answer was put Trey Ford in. Isn't it amazing that you put him in for a game and a quarter and he completely changes the culture of that game? I mean,
sure, you fire your head coach,
and you fired the head coach, but they still didn't put him in, right? Yeah. They still didn't put him in. They finally did in the fourth quarter. He changes everything. Really, I think what he changed in his first start was giving him a solution when they got into the red zone. McLeod Bethel Thompson threw for tons of yards all season long. But they didn't know what to do with the ball once they got inside the 30. He gets injured in that first start. McLeod Bethel Thompson comes in. Are we talking about the Eskimos right now? I guess I kind of am.
Well, I mean, we're
anyway, my bottom line, Trey Ford changed everything for that. The change of ownership was a good move. McLeod Bethel Thompson looked great last week. I'm going to be curious to see if they can keep that going.
Yeah, and we talked about, if you want to talk about returning to the green and gold and the return, we mentioned in our poem, we said one of the key catalysts to the Elks slowly turning things around, and the West is wide open right now, was firing their head coach, Chris Jones. Head coach, general manager got released. Well, turns out this week, after Hamilton loses to the Elks, Hamilton hires Chris Jones as a defensive assistant. Now, I believe when you let go of your defensive coordinator, Mark Washington, which is what Hamilton did, and you hire Chris Jones, he's basically your de facto defensive coordinator. I don't think they give him the official position, but does him getting hired to Hamilton void his contract? Because typically coaches, especially head coaches, when they get fired, their salaries are still guaranteed. Yeah. So is he still getting paid from the Elks and now from Hamilton, or did he find a loophole?
See, that's a great question. I was looking into that myself now, and I found nothing on it. But one thing you know about Chris Jones is he is an amazing negotiator.
Yeah.
I'm sure, maybe there's a loophole in there where my best guess, Chev, is that accepting a head coaching gig elsewhere in the CFL would void that. But he's not a head coach. He's not even a named coordinator. Yeah. I mean, he could be a special assistant or something along those lines. You can't keep a guy from working. So maybe it was a case where he just can't become a head coach, but certainly he's still getting paid. He wouldn't walk away from free money just to coach, as a coordinator or a position coach in the CFL. Certainly not.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Bo Levi Mitchell didn't start that last game, but he got to play because I believe Hamilton's quarterback got hurt, and Bo still played well. He threw a couple of picks still, but yeah, when you lose to what a lot of people consider the worst team in the league, and you're trying to climb out of the cellar, out of the East, changes are going to be made. And Mark Washington, unfortunately, great guy, great CFL coach. He's let go, and Coach Jones brought in. And I thought this was funny too. This kind of goes to, I think there's this recurring theme. We're talking about things returning, but we're also talking about this new wave of very sensitive. Do you remember back in the day, Sheldon, when players got cut, players got released, coaches got cut, fired? No team was thanking them for their service. Like now, every time I see a coach get fired or a player get cut, there's always like this, we love this guy so much. We wish him all the best. And there's a big social media announcement. Is that just feeding the machine, or do you think it's genuine, sincere, or is it just the BS of the modern day that the game people have to play?
Well, two things, and that's a great question. I never really thought of it like that way before, but two things about it. One, it's certainly a nice touch. It makes you what? It makes you look good, right? Yeah. Now, if I'm Mark Washington, do I walk out of there all sad and then read the press release and say, oh, that was really nice. Yeah, that was really nice to those guys. No, of course not. But it does. I think it makes you look better to the outside world that you're saying the right things. Number two, let's not forget that this is a small league and guys get rehashed all the time. You burn a guy today, and he might be the one to burn you, to be in a position to burn you tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely, right? This league. Definitely this league. Yeah,
so you got to handle things the right way and give a guy a little bit of grace. And let's be honest too, if you really want to diagnose what was going on there, Scott Milanovich has not had control of this team from the time he got there. He maybe backed the wrong quarterback, but there's a ton of issues there. Yeah, well, Mark Washington, they've had a couple of really bad games where they gave up 400 or 500 yards passing. It seemed couldn't stop anybody in the defensive backfield, but the reason losing Mark Washington did not just overnight make this team better. And bringing in a guy like Chris Jones, I think you got to be careful with that one, because he's got a history. Yeah, he's had some wins, right? He did great as a Calgary Stampeders defensive coordinator, but then he starts making power plays and power moves, and teams around him get burnt. He did it to Edmonton. He did it to Saskatchewan. He did it to Edmonton again here by not addressing the quarterback situation a year ago. And he's always just going to keep making moves that benefit Chris Jones. Right?
CFL definitely is a retread league. Hey, I mean, you just see it constantly and consistently. And I mean, I thought after Jones was done in Edmonton, we talked about it, and a lot of people talked about it. Like Jock Wilson, I love listening to Jock. He thought, oh, this guy is gone for good.
Done.
He resurfaces, right? But Hamilton's what's going on in Hamilton. It was seeded in the playoffs last year when they couldn't decide on who their starting quarterback was going into the West or the Eastern final there. against Montreal, right? You remember Sean Lemon says, I don't care who they put him in, I'm going to
I'll
sack
sack them
both. He did,
and he did.
But there was some trust issues there last year between Milanovic and Bo, and I think this is, Bo left in the offseason. Remember, it was a very sour tasting Bo. He's like, I don't know if I'm here next year.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't pay me so much money and then bench me in the playoffs. And then they traded Matthew Schultz to Calgary, and Bo winds up being the de facto quarterback. But I think that seed of mistrust and that relationship strain between Milanovic and Bo has always been there. Even though I've got to say, Bo has been a top performer this year. He still is a top performer. Yeah, he throws a pick here and there, but his team has not bailed him out.
I so disagree with that. Like, I look at that the same thing as McLeod Bethel Thompson. Like, yeah, he put up a lot of yards, but he's not finishing. He's not scoring. And I think that's a quarterback's job. And you talk about that mistrust. If I'm not wrong, the game that he got pulled, didn't he get pulled in like the first or second quarter?
Yeah.
And he did the same old sprint out to his right.
Yep.
I believe I can throw anywhere on the field, threw the Brett Favre back across the middle for a pick. And you could just see Scott Milanovic just, really? Get off the field. You knew then he was done with it. My biggest thing that surprised me, maybe because they just invested so much money into him, I'm surprised he returned to Hamilton after last season. Because did it look like that wasn't going to happen?
Well, they signed him to a big deal. He thought they were going to get rid of him in the offseason, but they kept him, right? So Bo in Hamilton, Coach Jones in Hamilton, Nathan Rourke returns last week. Big money deal. Big. We talked about it. $785,000 or $749,000 guaranteed next year when he gets his full salary. This year he's probably got a prorated amount, but next year his full pop is like $750,000 and I believe $825,000 the following year. Goes into the game against Winnipeg. He didn't look so good. Now, did we expect that off of 2 days of practice? Were you expecting more? Because I think it played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out.
I was expecting more. Like I didn't expect it to be like lights out. But I certainly wasn't expecting 47 yards at the half. But it's just a reminder. I don't care who you are or what your pedigree is. Like when you're coming into when you're coming to the CFL in week 11, week 12, and you're facing the Blue Bombers, that's a good team. And there's not, and you can say what you want about, I'm familiar with the offense, the offensive coordinator, he's already learned 3 other teams since then. He's chased as hard into the NFL. It's going to take a little bit to come back. So I'm not overly surprised. I thought it would be better. So am I worried? So let me ask you this then. Are you worried?
About what?
That Nathan Rourke may have not returned the same guy as he left?
I tell you what, I don't care. But if I'm Neil McAvoy, the co-GM of the BC Lions, or one of the GMs with Rick Campbell, I'm not hitting that call button on other GM's number just yet. I mean, I know it's early, but last week we were talking about, is this the end of Vernon Adams? Well,
that's right.
Let's see. Let's give him another week. Let's see what comes out. But yeah, it's the week of retreads. We're gonna go to Toronto because Chad Kelly's back this week. Now you all know the story. We've talked about this. Chad Kelly, kind of smelly in his personal life, doing the sexual harassment in the workplace act with former coach, and we know that although it didn't get a civil lawsuit that was settled out of court, many of the allegations that were brought forth in court were proven by an independent investigation. Suspended for what has been 9 games, 10 games. CFL reinstated him. He's going to be back on the field. Not too sure if he's playing, because I think that Ryan Dinwiddie, head coach of the Toronto Argonauts, is kind of taking a cue from the old Nathan Rourke thing, thinking maybe we got to pump the brakes on this guy, get him in slowly, but he's back. Press conference, very contrite, pay for my sins. Brought shame to my team, my coaches, my family.
My favorite line was,
general.
I learned that I have to give respect to all people, regardless of their gender. I thought that was the worst statement he made. I got to be nice to everyone, even every gender. It was clearly a press release written by a publicist that said, "Listen, read this, don't stray, and keep your nose clean for the next few weeks."
Yeah, and I mean, CFL's a second chance. Like, unfortunately, with this guy, it's his 3rd or 4th chance. He had a lot of history coming into this league, like a lot. Like, he had a 2nd or 3rd chance while he was in the NFL. in college. Lot of talent. We saw it. We saw it on display the last 2 years. You know, when he came in the Grey Cup, won the Grey Cup for McLeod Bethel Thompson. Then last year, put up, you know, record-breaking numbers with the Argos, MOP numbers. But yeah, just a black mark on the league, how it was handled, how the Argonauts handled it, you know, and he's getting an opportunity to put it all behind him. And I guess what he does from this point forward and how things play out, not just on the field, but in his personal life, will determine if the CFL made the right choice, if the Argonauts made the right choice, if fans make the right choice by continuing to buy tickets, and people like us make the right choice by, you know, investing in the league beyond this. Because, you know, we've played with some unsavory characters. Not everyone gets second chances. Some guys get half a chance. Some guys get no chance. He's getting a second chance in this league. He better make good. That's the only thing you could say is you pull him aside and you say, listen, you could be that guy. Don't be that guy. Like, I don't want you to be that guy. It was Mike Tomlin from the Steelers said, listen, whatever you do, just don't be that guy. I don't want to have to answer the phone in the middle of the night.
The problem is that guy can't help but being that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Donald Trump's up on stage. Okay, Donald, we love your policies. Just say something nice.
Yeah, no.
You know, he's incapable of saying something that's going to win over the other half of the country, right? Incapable.
Yeah. Incapable.
And so, you know, with Chad Kelly, did the Toronto Argonauts get better? They absolutely did. They've had a good season in spite of losing their starting quarterback. They just got better. Might not show this week, but they got better. Is it's going to change who he is as a person. You know, if he just stays off social media and stays out of the limelight for the next 6 months to a year, let this all blow over, maybe win another Grey Cup or get the team close. I think all will be forgiven. He paid for his sins, right? He not only cost him money and games, he lost his status in Canada. He's gotten exposed. He got embarrassed. And that's a big price for a guy to pay.
Well, a big thing that he's not going to be getting endorsements for the same reason that the Edmonton Eskimos can no longer be the Edmonton Eskimos. People will stay away from this guy with a 10-foot pole. There seem to be these recurring themes, right? Like,
hey, can I throw back to the Eskimos for 1 second here too, though?
Yeah. Throw it back
about the sponsorship. So somebody writes in, Todd Kozak writes in earlier, call it the Igloo. Can you imagine that? Give him a new building, give him the old name back, work out a partnership with the North, and call the building the Igloo. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be if that's not, what do they call it? Cultural appropriation, which is another term that we've got to be wary of. You know what, Sheldon? Let's take a break. We said we want to come in on time with these breaks. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about Austin Mack coming back to the Alouettes. Not specifically about the player, but what that could do to a team that's on a tear right now. And all of a sudden, you add another piece. There's only one football. Let's talk about that when we get back. We'll take a quick break. We'll finish up with CFL talk and then maybe get to some of our Hollywood tea. You're here with Chevy and Nasty, and this is The Ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Okay, folks, and that's it. That's all the time we have for this week. Why do we put a commercial break with like 5 minutes left?
I don't know, because we want to come in on time. And you need to pee. I was just thinking of my buddy. Was it? Yeah, I always wonder if you're going to be back because I can't see the screen. when we're on commercial. I always wonder if you're going to be sitting in the chair, pulling up, gone. There's going to be a cat in the picture. What did the cat come back, by the way?
Yeah, great question. The cat did not come back. It came back that night.
Yeah, and
but
then left
it
again.
escaped again a couple of nights later because the thing you should have seen this thing, Chevy. It was ridiculous. You'd be sitting there and you'd look over your shoulder before you open the door. This cat had such a want to get outside. You'd look over your shoulder as if he'd stalking you constantly, and he wasn't there. So then you turn back to the door, you take your 2 steps and reach. And as you take that last step and reach and grab the door handle, you hear brum, brum, brum. And as you're looking over your shoulder, opening the door, he's gone. He had it timed up so well that and then one night he just never came back.
The cat never came back. Well, Fred Penner was in BC Place last week as the halftime show, and the cat came back there, but your cat is gone. Who did come back, though, was Austin Mack, return of the Mack in Montreal. And what I just wanted to touch about with this is Montreal, after 12 weeks or 11 weeks of play, 9-1 record. They're firing on all cylinders. They lose their quarterback. They didn't miss a beat. Some of their players get hurt. They don't miss a beat. And now you get this all-world talent, like he was an all-world talent, one of their big contributors last year, and you got to fit him in the lineup somewhere. Now, every year, this time of year when we played, there was always the NFL cuts. They expand the practice roster so you can have more guys, but this is not just an NFL cut. This was a guy that was a key component to your team last year. Coming back, I always wonder how this affects a team, especially like Nathan Rourke going back to Toronto or to BC, excuse me. Their quarterback got injured. Fernandez got injured. They needed some help. They were on a 3-game losing skid. Perfect timing. Chad Kelly. Well, you know what? They were having a tough time with Dukes and Arbuckle. Chad Kelly's going to come back and he's going to return to form at some point. But Austin Mack, he's a receiver. He's a great receiver, but Montreal's doesn't seem to be looking for any help in that department, but they signed him. What do you think about this? Like when teams bring back, will it affect the chemistry?
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. It's definitely going to cause some disruption because you know what it's like to be in that group, in that position meeting group. And you're like, okay, there's 7 of us each week that are in there, plus a couple of practice roster guys. And you know what? This week there's going to be 8. No, there's going to be 7. There's got to be a change made, right? You can only have so many numbers, and somebody's leaving. Is it me? How is it going to impact me? So for sure, it's going to have an impact. But at the same time, you're constantly aware of that. Look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, right? Is this any different than Kenny Lawler having an injury where where a guy misses camp and say returns for Labor Day? I know it's a little bit different if a guy's in camp or like in the meeting rooms around the stadium rather than went off to the NFL. But to me, Austin Mack was such a dynamic part of that playoff run last year. I mean, he had such chemistry with the guys, with Fajardo. He was so dialed in, and he was an absolute team guy. I mean, I personally know some guys are going to have some hurt feelings over this because that's the nature of pro sports. But I think the Montreal Alouettes just got better. To me, in fact, what I would say, it's almost not fair.
Yeah, it definitely is not fair. But you look at the receiving corps just last week against Saskatchewan. Charleston Rambo, almost 100 yards. Spiker, who stepped up this year, almost 100 yards. We're not even talking about Philpott, who didn't play last week, right? So maybe there's that opening there. But, Philpott's a Canadian. Austin Mack's American. So even roster-wise, it's going to be hard to fit him in because a good American is going to have to sit. Do you pick Charleston Rambo? Do you pick Cole Spiker? Do you pick Reggie White Jr.? You got to sit someone. You got to sit an American receiver. And again, there's still only one ball. And it kind of reminds me of like when BC Lions, when the BC Lions went on their losing skid 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were having to make room for a player that came back. And that player, I believe that was a receiver, what's his name? I'm looking.
BC?
Alexander Hollins. Yeah.
Right.
Alexander Hollins. I believe he was on the injured list. And in his absence, Justin McInnes had like 2 or 3 over 200-yard games.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden,
he's a Canadian though.
But McInnes is. But when Hollins comes back, he gets the spot that McInnes was in. McInnes moves outside to a spot where he's not getting balls. The offense is not designed to throw balls.
Yeah.
And now everything is off. And BC Lions go into a slump. And now Vernon Adams is trying to force plays. And then he gets hurt. And then they sign Nathan Rourke. And Vernon Adams is out of a job. All because they tried to make space for a guy. And I'm just wondering if this is the case, especially when you got a team that's firing on all cylinders like Montreal. It's not like I remember when I came back from the NFL, I went to Edmonton. Okay. I wasn't thinking of going back to Edmonton, but in that case, Jed Roberts got hurt, career-ending injury. Doug Peterson, Canadian D tackle, gets hurt. Steve Charbonneau got hurt. Another Canadian D tackle hurt. They were dying for guys. It was the perfect opportunity for me to come in and play. And the Edmonton Eskimos definitely needed help at that point. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have come. This is a different situation. This is like, well, you know what? It's a nice to have. Now, they obviously have the money. They have the cap room. But, maybe Montreal makes a deal in the next couple of weeks, because when you have that type of talent and you only have one ball, you're wasting money putting it all into all those guys. So maybe someone's on the move. I don't know. It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, let's hear it. Great. You got it?
You got it? Let's hit some overtime. Get the song. There you go. So we're in overtime. We know you guys love the overtime. Last week we finished right on time. This week we're shifting gears out of the CFL. Maybe not out of sport completely. Let's go to the NHL, Sheldon. Both our teams made some moves this weekend. Some splashy headlines for both my Montreal Canadiens and your Edmonton Oilers. I'm going to start with my Montreal Canadiens. I don't know if I'm happy to see, like Patrick Laine, right? When he was in Winnipeg, great player. He had a good start there. At the one time, Jamin, you could concur. I believe Patrick Laine was quoted in the newspaper saying, "I love Winnipeg. I never want to leave this place." And then things quickly turned sour. Don't know if it was a behind-the-scenes personnel thing, clash of personalities, but pretty soon he soured on the whole Winnipeg thing, and his talent was starting to fizzle. Trade him to Columbus. I think it was a couple of rough years there. You had a couple of tough coaching situations and player situations, and Columbus is not necessarily a destination for players. And anyways, lo and behold, he was in the players. What do you call it? The players I don't know if it's a substance abuse program, but he was in one of those programs to help him out with his mental health, and he was coming off an injury. Long story, he requests a trade. I don't want to be in Columbus. Columbus says we only want guys that want to be here. Big benefit for my Montreal Canadiens if this guy can return to form. This guy is a tier, I don't know, B+ player. If you're thinking about Connor McDavid being an A+, and Sidney Crosby being an A+, and Ovechkin A+, and then a couple of guys below that being A's. To me, talent-wise, he's a B+.
Easy, and that's easily a B+. Yeah, great. I think that's a great pickup for the Habs. You never really know what you're going to get. I didn't see the details of the contract. Maybe just a 2-year deal, just to try him on for size a little bit. Or did he get paid?
Well, he's getting $7 million, and the Habs are on the hook for all of that. He's a former 40-goal scorer, so that's a big power move by the Habs, who have a great young core. Still missing a goalie, in my opinion, but they got Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki. You still got Brendan Gallagher. I'm a big Habs fan. I like this move. It might be one of those situations, where do you fit him? But he's a top line guy, so he's going to be playing on the top line with the big boys. But there's going to be some guys disappointed, like you said. But if he can return to form, 8.5 million. I think it was 7.3 million this year, and then the following year, 8.5 million.
There you go.
But if he can return to that goal scoring touch that he had, makes the Habs a big player in that division. So I'm happy about that. Your Oilers, on the other hand.
Whoa, and I heard something. I haven't even looked into this. So it was only today I saw that it was Broberg and Dylan Holloway.
Yeah.
Oilers losing with the offer sheet deal. 2 guys in one offseason. That's ridiculous.
So restricted free agents, not
restricted free agents. Yeah, restricted
not
free
unrestricted.
agents. Yeah, so meaning that.
Yeah.
Meaning that I hardly understand how that rule works.
If a team signs them, if a team makes an offer and they agree to go,
because they're not, because at this time they're not signed. And you got to believe that the Oilers, earlier would have put out an offer sheet to them, right?
Yeah.
You got to think they would have. Especially you take a look at Holloway, and he was a big part of the. He was a nice spark for the Oilers, and the Oilers,
a huge spark.
Yeah, huge spark. And you look at him, and when you've got so much money tied up in guys like Draisaitl and McDavid, you better hope that you're drafting well and you're developing players well. So I got to think this was a huge scare when it happened, but at the same time, you got to keep your team's principles, and you can't let other clubs drive up your salary cap even more.
Yeah,
right.
And the other thing too is with the young players, these guys, I think it's an opportunity for them. And Trey mentions that the Oilers
moving CC, good move, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, young guy, he loved being an Oiler. He was solid defender, but you know what? They figured they could move on and get better and kind of save some money. But with these 2 young guys, Holloway and Rourke, great players. I think when you're a young guy and you're looking at the roster, at the top end of the roster, and you're like, geez, I'm always going to be behind these top guys. I'm never going to make, nobody wants to be a third line guy. Nobody wants to be the quote unquote energy guy. Like when Dylan Holloway sparked the Florida Panthers, it's not because he's like, oh yeah, I'm a spark guy, I'm going to go in there and everyone else can play well. He's like, I'm going out there, I'm going to make a difference, because that's the type of player I am. And I think in Edmonton, you'll never have that opportunity to be that guy. You never have an opportunity to climb up, because it's always going to be figuring out how to spark and how to free up space for Draisaitl, Nuge, McDavid, and
you're naming some pretty old guys. The days are numbered, though. The way I'm looking at this is, listen, if I'm with this club, I have a window that certainly I don't think St. Louis is going to give me that same opportunity to win that cup.
Yeah, but
I know what you mean. When you're young, you're thinking about career, right? You're thinking about money.
Yes.
You're thinking about that contract. I don't know. It's a tough one. This is just one of those wonky things. I don't think any other professional league in the world that I know of has anything like this restricted free agency and offer sheets and opportunities. It's just screwy, but it gives us something to talk about in August for the NHL. I'm sorry to see them go, but I know they did the right thing not resigning him.
Trey's calling you out. He's saying, listen, please, Sheldon, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and McDavid, they're not old, and they're not. Like, these guys have another 10 years ahead of them. And I think
are they all going to be there in 3 years?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not all of them, but one of them for sure will be, and everybody's going to be a bit player around that. You see how the Oilers play their games. It's all about getting Connor McDavid on the ice, and these young guys know that too. And the less ice time they have, the less opportunity they have to put points on the board to sign big checks. So for me, I think for some of these young guys, they're looking to still make a name for themselves. Getting out of there is a better opportunity to create some longevity in their career, because maybe on a team like St. Louis, they will be a bigger impact guy than an on the roster, off the roster. How do we tweak the roster for chemistry wise? And I think Dylan Holloway, he's going to make an impact in St. Louis and be a difference maker. Just like I think Patrick Laine going to Montreal is going to be a difference maker for that team.
Yeah.
So I'll wrap up the sports talk, because that's about all we got on sports. But you know what? That Hollywood tea, a couple of things we want to touch on today.
I'll give you 5 minutes on that one.
You give me 5 minutes on which one? On both or one? Both or one?
I don't
First
know which.
Okay. Big news of the day. Well, no, I want to end with a happy note. Okay. Last week, Matthew Perry,
both.
Right? Matthew Perry. Turns out, he died unfortunately in his hot tub, overdose and ketamines. Turns out 5 people were charged in his death. Doctors, the ketamine queen, he one of his assistants. These people just fed this poor man's addiction to the point where he died. And it's unfortunate. Like, everyone knew him as Chandler on Friends. Everyone loved him for his TV persona. Obviously, he's a real human being with real issues, addiction issues that he was quite open about. And unfortunately, it did him in the end. And we talk about men's health. We always talk about men's health. We talk about health in general. And when I saw this one, it bothered me because these people, and we've seen it time and time again with people, took advantage of this guy for his money. In fact, I believe there was a text exchange between two doctors saying, "How much can we get out of this guy? How much money can we get out of this guy?"
Is that a fact?
That's a fact. So two doctors are like, "How much money can we get out of this?" I think there was even like they called him a chump or something, right? So they were all in on it. They're obviously all getting charged. And you know, when I saw it, it just makes me sad because that's kind of like this microcosm of this. Remember when doctors and the things that doctors did and what they prescribed, there was that
was a long time ago.
Level of respect, like, and I'm not saying the whole industry is lacking integrity, but when you talk about Canada, right, we had the universal healthcare, and our doctors were working for the people, but now you got doctors that work, they work in I guess our public healthcare system, but they also have the private stuff where you can get better care. And then you go to the States where they can prescribe everything. Like, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs when you got people that devoted their lives to studying to help people are doing things to directly do the inverse. I remember when I moved to California in 2004, coming from Canada, right? I moved to California, and you got billboards, like actual, like paid for huge billboards, and I saw hundreds of them. Hey, do you have sweaty palms? We could take care of that with plastic surgery and Botox and all these weird treatments that you would never see up here. But now that stuff is everywhere. People get plastic surgery for anything now, like butt implants, ass implants, arm implants. Like, everything is fake, everything's phony, and there's a doctor that's willing to prescribe anything. I posted some work. I was gonna say I posted some workout pictures the other day, and 5 or 6 people asked me, "Hey, do you have a TRT?" And I was like, "What even is TRT? Testosterone replacement therapy?" And I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to get that. And then when you do a little bit of research, it's actually not hard. If you go into your doctor saying, "Hey, doc, I'm feeling a little bit low. I'm feeling like a little tired these days. I'm feeling like I need a little pep. They'll say, "Oh yeah, well, your testosterone levels are low," and beep, 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 beep. They write you a script, and that's all it is. And they skip the step where it's like, what's your lifestyle? What's your diet? What's your, what are you doing that's making you feel that? And that's the world we're living in. It's sad.
Yeah, first off, I'm not going to blame Alberta's partially private healthcare.
No, it's not an Alberta thing. It's not an Alberta thing. It's not an Alberta.
Also, too, I'm not sure that that's exactly how it goes with TRT. I think there's a lot of knowledgeable doctors with a lot of care that will really scrutinize you. I know my doctor. We got a new doctor, young guy. He says, "Listen, I'm just going to let you know right off the bat. I don't prescribe this, or this." He says, "Fair enough." If he puts it right. I think our doctors are amazing. I think, yeah, they're they're part of the system, and there's some issues or whatever with the system. If you're talking about Botox injections and things like that, that's cosmetic surgery. But does that change the fact that there's going to be some people on the fringes that are willing to put their license on the line? Yeah, I guess we just saw that there are, right? But if you look at Matthew Perry and that whole group, though, it's the world lost a great talent, but we kind of lost him a long time ago. Yeah, right? It's one of those sad cases where he fell into addiction early in his life when he had all of that massive fame and wealth that came his way, and he's never fully recovered. I'm not going to call him the poor victim. Obviously, that he's been struggling with this his whole life, and he's been keeping some circles. He just got sucked back in, right? And that's the tragedy.
He had enablers.
But the ketamine queen. I was researching it today. I said, give me a list of famous people that died of ketamine overdoses, and the next most famous person there is? Nobody. I found nobody. I think this was I won't say a freak thing. I think anytime you use medication, and in this case, it's a sedative and can actually put you out for surgery. Anytime you play games with a substance that's not what it was intended or to be used for, you're risking your life, right? And these two doctors and their assistants, if they were looking at literally, dude, how much can we milk out of this guy? he spent 75 grand that month on this, right? So
Yeah.
they're doing okay.
Yeah. I know. It's just sad. When I look at, my job, right? Like in the fire department, and the amount of opioid calls that has increased like exponentially in the last 7 to even 10 years. You look at the last 10 years,
Yeah.
opioid, like fire department here, especially in Calgary, we're first responders, we go medical calls, like it is epidemic levels. And that opioid crisis started in middle America.
Yeah.
With drug companies pushing to local doctors to prescribe this pain pill, and hooked a whole generation.
And to me, that's the shame of the system. Like, I don't even think they meant to be bad actors, but the doctors were prey because they were trained. Like, if you take a look at what medical school is, it's not what we used to think it is. It's all put out there. It's basically you become agents of the pharmaceutical companies with a whole lot of knowledge of the body and how things work. But I think the vast amount of their training is on drug interactions, and reactions and complications.
But look at now, you watch TV now, right? You watch a sporting event, you see ads for all kinds of drugs, and it's always like, ask your doctor. They don't even tell you what the drug is for. They tell you to ask your doctor. Next thing you know, you're having a conversation with your doctor about a drug you probably didn't even need. Next thing you know how human beings are. We're all hypochondriacs. Well, shoot, I need that. Look at Ozempic. It's causing such a controversy. It's a drug that was prescribed for diabetes, and now everyone is asking their doctor about it. And people are being prescribed Ozempic as a weight loss device, and totally opposite of what it's meant for. Exercise and healthy living is what should be prescribed for weight loss, but everybody wants a shortcut.
Well, but in fairness, I know I sound like I'm arguing with you on everything, but Viagra,
no, it's fine.
Viagra was not designed to help male performance.
Yeah,
it was a side effect.
Yeah,
and it quickly became a very profitable side effect, right? So, things are going to happen. I mean, the bottom line is
it's a hard discussion.
Got to take responsibility for their own health. If you're dealing with Dr. Kevorkian, you're going to get one result. If you're dealing with Dr. Feelgood, you're going to get another one. Yeah. And in Matthew Perry's case, it was sad, but and maybe he didn't see it coming. But if you mess around with the wrong people, and you can die in an awful hurry, right? But
absolutely.
I don't know what else to say about that. It was sad, but I guess predictable.
Let's move on to something that it's not happier, but it's a little lighter topic. We talked about this over and over. I guess we finally put a bow on this one. We're going to tuck this one away for good. Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez. We talked about a number of times on this show. They're on again, romance that happened 2 years ago. They got married in Vegas. I was in Vegas that weekend. I love Ben Affleck. I think he's a fantastic talent. Went over the moon for him when he became Batman, because you know me, I'm a big geek. He was a great Batman, so I loved him even more. But he's made some great movies, from Good Will Hunting to most recently Air. I thought was a fantastic movie. Great talent in Hollywood, great actor. And then married J-Lo 2 years ago. It was the Hollywood romance. Eloped in Las Vegas, had the big wedding 2 years ago. Well, quickly turned sour. We've seen this over the last couple of months. Living separately, selling their homes. And now finally today, the breaking news, TMZ, J-Lo files for divorce. It's over, Sheldon. She's on her fourth divorce. He's on his second.
And that's because they weren't married before, right?
No,
Jenny from the Block video. They were just dating, right?
Yeah, just dating.
Yeah.
Not married. It kind of fizzled out.
No, I got
Daryl's
that now.
still with us. If Daryl's still with us, I know he had a story about it that he was willing to share. But yeah, they're done. Is she addicted to marriage, or is she addicted to divorce? What do you think?
I just said it. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I don't know her, Chev.
I don't know.
What's it look like? What's it look like to me? It looks like you've got entitled rich people that just want the spotlights, and it was so irresponsible. There was, even in the filing, she filed it not with a lawyer, but on her own behalf.
Yeah.
They didn't have a prenup. They didn't have any kind of arrangement. She said she's giving up any claim on him. But the fact of the matter is, they've been married for a full 2 years, which in Hollywood means he's directed a couple of movies and starred in a movie, including, I think what I'm going to say, the last thing I'm going to say about it, I'm not surprised it happened, but the best thing that came out of this is I found out that he just finished shooting The Accountant too. Did you ever see The Accountant?
I started watching it. I kind of fell asleep because I watched it late at night, but I liked that movie. I thought it was great.
One of the best kind of like low budget films that he's ever done.
Yeah.
But end of the day, I'm not surprised, right? She loves the spotlight. She loves getting married. She's probably a very empathetic, big emotion person. Oh, this time is for real. But by the time you start hitting 3, 4, 5, you might want to just stay dating for a little while in the next one, right?
Yeah, just date.
Did she marry A-Rod?
Yeah, A-Rod, Mark Anthony, some other dude. Yeah,
who's the other dude in there?
There was some backup dancer. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, no, it's Hollywood stuff. This happens every time two people get together. You think it's forever and they break up. Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Justin Timberlake, and
that could have worked except for Brad Pitt's alcoholism, right?
Yeah. And then we talking about, right now the hot couple is the Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, Deadpool and Lady Deadpool. But you know what? That might fizzle out too. It seems that world, things are a little bit fickle. What's not fickle is that Sheldon and I are here every Tuesday from 11 p.m. and sometimes a little bit later past 1. Next week, I'm on holidays. Now, I am going to commit to trying to be on the show. I don't know what my Wi-Fi is. I'm in Panorama. I'm bringing my headphones. I'm bringing a computer. And Sheldon, are we going to do a show? Like, what's the deal? What are we going to do? I want to do it. I talked to Brittany today. I said, babe, listen, I'm in Panorama. We got the show. We might have an hour time change. I don't know. But she's like, listen, I'll bring my computer, bring your headphones. We'll find you some Wi-Fi. You do it. You want to do it next week? What do you guys think? What do you think, Sheldon?
For me, sure. Like, yeah. Let's see if we can figure it out logistically. I mean, we're on, so yeah.
Trey wants to do it. Trey's in. Trey says he's all in for the show. Oh, we got CFL predictions. I guess we can't wrap up the sports. Okay.
I'm curious how we did last week because I honestly there's a couple of tight ones last week, and this week I think it's getting even tighter.
Well, I think Trey has it up there. Oh, 3.
Oh my, 1 and 3. Oh my God, look at that.
Oh,
okay, so I always want to do I want to do a recap. So which ones did I get wrong last week? Which ones did I get right? I got the I got the Elk right.
I got Ottawa. I got Montreal. I got Edmonton.
What?
And I think I didn't get BC. I think you took Calgary. You took Saskatchewan. We both took Edmonton. And I think you took or maybe I took Winnipeg and you.
Well, I took the Elk. I took the Elk for sure.
Yes.
And that means that I picked the Lions, which bad call. That was a bad one.
Yeah.
The Riders, though, here's the thing. The Riders, I made the right call, but they missed 4 out of 7 field goals, and one of them got ran back the other way. Chevy, there was 11 points off of that because they got the single plus 7. So that was an 18-point swing. So
you got to talk to your kicker.
And then the Stamps and the Red Blacks, I lost by 2 points. Okay, I'll own that one.
There was some exciting finishes in the CFL last week, like the Stamps Ottawa game. I was really happy for Jeremiah Mazzoli, actually, who hadn't played football in about 2 years. I like him as a player. He is a great CFL quarterback. He's always been solid, always been good. Had a bit of injury trouble and bad luck last couple of years, but I was glad he had a great comeback at the end there. I thought that was fantastic management. I watched the end of that game. Yeah, I feel bad for the Stamps, but he put them in a position to win and they won. So that was cool. But yeah, let's make our predictions this week because we got to.
This is a hard one. So let's look at tomorrow night's game. Rough Riders are in Toronto. Is
that tomorrow already? No. 2 days.
Thursday. Sorry, Thursday. It's saying here is tomorrow, but it can't be tomorrow.
No, it's got to be Thursday.
Oh yeah, that's because.
It is because it's past midnight.
Because it's
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna go Saskatchewan. They need to bounce back from last week. They're gonna put it. I'm taking Saskatchewan. Chad Kelly or no Chad Kelly, I don't care who they put in. I think Saskatchewan is on a mission. They got.
I would have been more bullish on the Argos. I'd not just seen what happened to Nathan Rourke. So I'm with you on that one. The Riders in that game. Next Friday night we have Tiger Cats in Winnipeg. Chev, I don't even think you need to break that one down. We know you're still a Bull Levi guy. Are you a believer?
Well, I don't know if he's starting or not, but I think he is. I'm a believer. I'm going to pick Bo Levi Mitchell. I think Coach Jones is gonna have a couple of jobs and butts puckered up, and they're going to play a little better than they've been playing on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that Hamilton's gonna pull this one off.
Little swagger with Chris Jones coming in.
Yeah,
I'm not a believer, and yeah, blue Bombers for sure. Blue Bombers. Next, we have the BC Lions in Ottawa Red Blacks, and this is an interesting one with Dustin Crum coming back healthy. Drew Brown coming back healthy. Mazzoli looking very strong in his first start.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of capable guys there. What do you think?
I'm going to go BC. And the reason I'm going to go BC is because the Stamps haven't been very good lately. And that game last week was a great back and forth game. But Ottawa, it took to the last second to win that game against the Stamps. I think BC has the potential to play Ottawa harder than the Stamps did. I'm taking BC.
See, for me, this is a tough call to make. You know, do you really believe, after what we saw from the Lions at the start of the season, do you really believe that the Lions are about to lose 5 in a row after winning 5 in a row? I can't see that. Right. So, the same thing here. I think Nathan Rourke's a pro. I think Vernon Adams should at least be healthy again. And so they're going to have some options. And I think you're going to have a very hungry Lions club. So I'm with you on this one. BC Lions are going to go into Ottawa. Ottawa's doing great. I'm just not sure I'm a total believer, which is ridiculous because I think they're 7-2 or something at this point. I'm taking the Lions on that one. And lastly, and this is the hardest pick of the week for me.
You really?
Well, you've got the Owls. I don't know. Are they going to have, is Fajardo back?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter if he's back.
It doesn't matter. I mean, they're 9-1.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think Fajardo is back. They played enough games without him and won without him. I'm picking Montreal. I can't, I gave the Elks their due last week and the week before, but this week they're little run ends. They're little run ends, and not that I want it to end, but they're facing a really superior opponent. So, I'm picking Montreal. You? Are you going for the underdog?
No, I was going to go with the Owls, but I'm getting a little bit although I think it's interesting. I think they have a chance. Chev, I do think they have a chance. The only problem for me is the Elks defense hasn't showed any consistency at all, let alone going onto the road where a lot of young football players have a hard time playing anyway in that city. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I do have to go the home team, the Owls.
Hey, can I change my one pick? Can I change one pick?
I was just about to. You're going to change.
I want to change I want to change my Toronto pick. I want to change my Toronto pick. I want to pick Toronto.
Okay, you can change that. Yeah.
Saskatchewan loses AJ Ouellette. Saskatchewan loses AJ Ouellette. I'm picking Toronto. I need to.
Yeah, they did lose Ouellette. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick Toronto. You need a ground game. But Trevor Harris did play well for Saskatchewan. I'm picking Toronto. I'm in Toronto. Trevor Harris looked. Yeah, I've forgiven Chad Kelly. What did he do? I don't even remember what he did. This guy's amazing. He's amazing. I'm going for Toronto. Go Argos! Yeah. Are you changing one? Are you changing?
No, I'm going to stick with it. There's a side of me that says Ottawa's going to win at home, but I'm not willing to turn my back on the Lions. I still believe that they got a good club there. So
okay, so to recap for me, Toronto, lock it. Hamilton, lock it. BC, lock it, and Montreal, lock it. That's my picks.
Wow. Yeah. And I got Riders, Bombers, Lions, and Alouettes.
There you go.
That's
it.
I can
make up some ground. I can make up some ground. Guys, listen, this was a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here every Tuesday. We're going to be back next Tuesday. I might have some little headphones, might have some Wi-Fi issues, but Trey's on the background. Sheldon's going to be carrying it. We're going to have lots to talk about. There's always lots to talk about. But it means nothing if you guys aren't here, and we appreciate you joining us every week here on The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Remember to follow us, like, and subscribe to all our social media stuff, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, Twitter, Spotify, and all that. Sheldon, great show. I know you said you weren't feeling it, but you brought it. You were awesome. Trey, great job pushing all the buttons in the back. Thanks, Daryl, obviously our executive producer, Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media. You guys are awesome. We had a blast. We hope you had fun. We'll be back next week. Take care and be safe out there.